One. Hello, Santa Barbara. My name is Daniel Zia. I am the founder and CEO and one of the Realtor partners here with Zia Group in Santa Barbara and Montecito and the Central Coast. I'm joined today with the Mora Brothers, Rafael Mora, who's one of our all-star Realtor partners on the Zia Group, and his brother, Abdon Mora, who's on the Jeff Bochsler team at Guaranteed Rate, helping lots of people with home loans and just doing a phenomenal job adding value to our community there. So I'd love to just talk to you guys a little bit about the Mora Brothers, how they got into different aspects of real estate and what they're doing now, what it'd be like to work with one or both of them. So let's go ahead and just take a few minutes here and get to know them both. Rafael, why don't you go ahead and start off and just tell us a little bit about your story? How'd you get into real estate in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually born and raised here in Santa Barbara, which is really neat. I got dragged away to Santa Maria. I say that as a joke when I was around high school time, but I ended up loving it. I enjoyed it and met a lot of amazing, great people. I ended up coming back to go to UCSB, where I studied economics and accounting, got the opportunity to play for the soccer team, which was an amazing experience as well. And once I graduated, I got into the accounting field, then the finance field, and then finally landed on the real estate field when I met Daniel Zia here, who got me to jump ship, and it's been an amazing experience so far. So really loving it.
We've been so glad to have you. For so many years, we've wanted to have a Spanish-speaking agent on our team to really care for the Hispanic population in Santa Barbara County. And so I know when I met you, Rafael, from the first moment I met you, I knew that you were the one that I wanted to have join our team and really just take care of that incredible population of people here in town. So love that you're with our team. And Abdon, it's been so great to get to know you as part of that journey, getting to know Rafael. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? How did you get into the financing world?
Yeah, well, similar to Rafa, I grew up in Santa Maria as well. And just recently, I was able to connect with Jeff Bochsler and, made the move down here to Santa Barbara. So far, I've been enjoying it. It's been a great team to work with.
I love that. I've known Jeff for years. I remember I got to know him, I think back when he was with Bank of America, and we were both kind of young guys, we're similar young profile. This is like probably over a decade ago. And I remember there was two things that really stuck out to me about Jeff. One is he had one of the best mind for economics that I had ever encountered in the financing space. So many lenders out there, they're actually pretty decent salespeople, but they don't know the core of economics. And Jeff Bochsler and his team is just one of the experts in the field where I actually read every email that Jeff puts out about the economy and what's it doing. And then there's a second thing that I loved about Jeff, and I still do, but I love his heart for impact. That's such a core part of what we do at Zia Group. And I remember he had a passion for microfinance, going into developing countries and offering microloans to individuals and families that need not just a handout, but really a hand up. And I just love that about him and how he put his money where his mouth is, so to speak. And he actually went down there and did microfinance on the ground for a period of time. So I just have such great respect for him and his team, Abdon. And I was thrilled when I heard that you joined his team to, again, help care for the Hispanic population here in town and just add tremendous value. So that's phenomenal. I love that. Rafa, I know you mentioned a little bit of why you got into real estate. You met me, but what was your heart? You were in the financial services realm. Here you are, this financial kind of whiz, economics, CPA kind of guru. And why, when you were comfortable there, did you say, I want to do this additional thing and go off into real estate?
I think I've always kind of been interested in real estate. I think the earliest memory that I probably was 8, 9, 10 years old. I was a lender's office and my dad was speaking to one of the people there. So that's kind of where my fascination for it grew, was through my parents and what they've been able to do over the years and stuff. So I remember him trying to explain to me what an escrow was and opening and closing. And as a teenager, I had no idea. It was completely over my head. So I always knew I kind of wanted to get into it. I kind of jumped into a little bit as part-time agent just to help them through some transactions. And then finally, once I went through a few, I realized like, this is really interesting work. This is something that I want to do full time. So that's kind of when I decided to make the move. So
I love that. And it's, I think it's fascinating because, Jaden, my son, he's 10, and my daughter Eden is 7. And I get to explain to them, even at this age, what is escrow, what is an earnest money deposit. I'm also teaching them about, financial statements and return on investment, and all sorts of other fun things. But, and my hope is, I don't necessarily hope that they get into real estate, but I hope that by me exposing them at a young age to a variety of different topics in business and finance and financial, like wealth building and real estate, that something about it catches them, and they either have the skills just for their own investing, or maybe they get the bug and they go into some aspect of business, which would be kind of fun too.
I can see them on Shark Tank in the near future, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, Jaden's latest request was, Dad, he has this little like handheld Pac-Man arcade game, and he's like, Dad, can I bring this to school to play to play with at lunchtime? And I'm thinking like, oh, maybe he's just being antisocial. He doesn't want to make friends. He hasn't been to the school for a couple of years. He goes to Christian Coastline Academy here in town. And, I kept asking him questions about it. You know what the reality was? He was going to start a business. He was going to charge his friends to play this little handheld Pac-Man game. And I'm just like, oh, geez, love the idea, Jaden. Let's talk about appropriate context so you don't get in trouble. So super cool. Well, let's switch gears just a little bit. So it sounds like Rafael, you knew that you wanted to get into real estate. You could, and you started as a part-time agent. Why did you decide to join Zia Group and do real estate sales on a team, and specifically Zia Group, rather than go out on your own?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think having experienced the solo agent, having to play different, put on different hats and touch every single aspect of the transaction, I realized that it's a lot of work, some of which I personally wasn't an expert on. So being able to join a team of experts who are doing different aspects of the transaction, I thought was really neat. But to be honest with you, I'm also just a very social guy. So to be able to have a team that I can kind of fall back on, and in particular, I think as a new agent, you run into new situations all of the time. So to be able to fall back, and everybody on the team's been amazing in terms of just being able to help out and answer questions. That I think has just catapulted my growth over this last year and whatever it's been. So it's been, light years ahead of where I thought I would be at this point. So
I love it. You've just done an amazing job. I mean, every time you help a client, that client's letting us know you just knock it out of the park for them. And I know one of the things that they really appreciate about you, that they always tell us, is just your heart as a true fiduciary. And it might have been that background right in financial services, is you're coming from that advisory position, and you're bringing in good sales skills to help people, but your heart is still at the core at one of neutral advisory. And so I know you've been able to go into a lot of clients' lives, and it's less about just the specific question of, do you buy this home or do you sell this home? And it's more about, well, what are your financial goals and what do you want to accomplish with your life? And let's talk about your savings. Let's talk about your other investments. And I know you've even done that for agents on our team, helping them invest in everything from crypto and everything else, all the crazy stuff that you're watching and tracking. And I just love that breadth of experience that you bring your clients. That's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, Abdon, why don't you tell us a little bit? You could have gone out on your own. You chose to join with Jeff Bochsler. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that journey was like for you and how that's been?
Yeah, well, similar to my brother, I wanted to join the industry in some way. And actually, prior to getting licensed as a mortgage lender, I was working at a bank, and we thought that it would be a good idea to, start doing home loans. And unfortunately, that bank didn't have the option for home mortgages. They were more of a commercial bank. So I just stuck with it for a while. Luckily, several months later, my brother connected me with Jeff, because he was looking for someone who spoke Spanish to join his team. And, after a couple phone interviews, everything went well. We both thought that I would make a great fit for his team. And I've been with them since last October. And overall, he's been an amazing mentor. Overall, guaranteed rate and the team have been an amazing experience to work with. So I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, it was really funny because I actually had my first conversation with Jeff just on a phone call, and he started just asking me questions about what I saw with my business and stuff, which I thought was really neat. Lender, sometimes they don't take the time to do that and really get to know you. So he started asking me questions like, where do you see yourself? Like, where do you think you can, add value? And that, just bringing it back, that was the first thing that I told him, was like, just being a Spanish speaker and being able to help that community, I think is going to be huge. And he agreed. And he's like, to be honest with you, I've actually been looking for someone on my team to be able to play that role as well, because you're right, like it's an underserved community. So he asked me if I had anyone in mind, and I thought, I think I had someone in mind. Let me reach out and see, just to verify. So I reached out to my brother, and immediately he's like, yes, can you connect me with them? So I joke with him. I told him, I think you owe me a drink next time we go out, in perpetuity. So we're still working on that one, but that's kind of how we, made the connection and stuff.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And it's, so my, Sarah, my wife, she's half Mexican. Her mom, my mother-in-law, lives in our guest house. I love her. Her name is Mama Sarah, and she's a phenomenal mother-in-law. But since getting to know her it's been 20 plus years now. We've been married almost 17 years. But since knowing Mama Sarah for over 20 years, I mean, her story is just incredible. I mean, coming up for Mexico when she was 17, and the steep learning curve, right? All the cultural elements going from Mexico to the US, learning the language, starting a business, investing, on all of this. And I just think about, she comes from a very uneducated background, it's kind of a very challenging childhood that just is really heartbreaking. And to see where she is now, I just think about, when she's trying to find an advisor, before meeting me, she didn't have a good framework of even where to go to find an advisor. I mean, it literally was, okay, someone mailed her something to her house, or she heard about someone on the radio. And it was less about like, hey, is this professional really the best person to be listening to? Does he or she know what they're talking about? Are they the best in their field? And it was more of just like, well, it's the only person I know. And because it was the only person that Mama Sarah knew, that person often didn't speak Spanish as their primary language, or even speak it fluently at all. And so she's forced to interact with a tough subject matter in a language that's not her primary language, right? And so I've just seen over the years this communication gap, and all the ways that communication gap can create this uncertainty cycle, and then they don't want to ask questions because they don't, it's almost that like, well, I don't want them to think I'm uneducated. I'm missing something with the language transition. And then they make decisions then based on not full understanding. And it's just, to me, it's the grace of God that she is where she is today financially. But I know for so many people, they've had bad advisors and they've been limited with their service provider selection. So I think it's super excited that now people in Santa Barbara have had the option to work with the Mora Brothers in the tag team, and to be able to interact in their own first language and interact with people that truly have their best in mind.
Yeah. And I guess just to that point, I feel like I remember from an early age myself, just oftentimes being responsible for helping my parents either understand different documents or even being that translator sometimes. So I can imagine how many other families might be out there where they're kind of depending on their children as well. And to be quite frank, to task like a 15-year-old with the responsibility of translating escrow or lender docs or anything like that, it's another world, like for ourselves included. So I think it's important to just fully understand what everyone's just kind of getting themselves into. So that's, just important nonetheless. But
yeah, and the reality, I mean, that's such a key point. I mean, how often are these amazing families, that the key decision maker is not understanding based on a language barrier what's in a written document, and you have that pressure on the younger child or one of their children to translate that. And what happens if one word is translated incorrectly, right? You just think about what happened, in the mid 2000s with all of the stated income loans and all of these adjustable rate mortgages, where I think a lot of families, they were making the best decisions that they knew how with the information that they were given and that they were understanding in their language. And the reality is they didn't have a full grasp of what was going to happen in the next handful of years when those adjustable rate mortgages adjusted up from 3 or 4% to 5, 6, 7, 8%, and what that would truly do to their mortgage payment. And then that was just a wave of short sales and foreclosures. And you literally it was so heartbreaking. You had generations of financial assets that were wiped out and oftentimes based on one decision where there just wasn't full understanding of what they were signing. And so I love it, gentlemen, that you guys are standing in the gap, and you guys are going to make sure that here in Santa Barbara County moving forward, that the chance of that happening is going to be less and less. So I love that.
And Daniel, just to that point, the earlier story that I mentioned about my earliest memory of real estate being when I was, 8, 9 years old, that's when I was in the lender's office. And that was actually the first lesson that my dad actually taught me. The lender was trying to get him into adjustable rate mortgages. And my dad was like, no, I want something fixed. I want something sure. He's very conservative by nature. So luckily he made that right decision. But years later, he explained to me, remember that time we were in the lender's office and he was telling me to do this. And he was looking at me, he was joking around with him like, no, you're being an idiot. Like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. That was actually the first lesson that I ever learned. And I thought it was mind boggling after what happened with the financial crisis. It just kind of went full circle. And I was like, wow, this is a really neat, way to learn that. So.
I love it. I love it. That's just incredible. Well, let's press in a little bit more, Rafael. So it's clear that you have a heart for the Hispanic population, right? I mean, you work with all sorts of clients, English speaking, Spanish speaking, but I knowing you, I know that every time that you get the opportunity to work with a Spanish speaking client, there is something near and dear to your heart because you've got that personal context and you have almost this like, I don't know, like the shepherd heart to you that just wants to make sure that they're not getting taken advantage of. And I love that. So why don't you just tell us a little bit give us a recent example of when you were working with a Spanish speaking client?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I feel like a lot of the clients that I've met, it started off as English, but then they found out that I spoke Spanish and it was almost like instant banter. It was like, oh, wait, yeah. All right, great. But I think the one that comes to mind is I actually had a high school friend, and I think that's why it makes it a little bit extra special. He actually reached out to me and said, hey, like my mother's actually looking to buy the home that she's been renting for the over 20 years. So she's been renting it for over 20 years. She's finally ready to actually purchase the home. And we wanted to see if you can kind of help her through it because she wants someone that speaks Spanish and can help her and just walk her through the transaction. So I thought that was a really neat experience. And again, after having worked such a long time to finally be able to do that is such an amazing accomplishment. So it felt really fulfilling at the end, to be honest, to have been able to walk her through it, but also know that my friend trusted me in reaching out with that. So
I love it. It's such a rewarding feeling when you get to help someone either with the lending side or the acquisition side buy their first home. I mean, it doesn't matter anything about their ethnicity or cultural background. Like, it's such a major accomplishment here in Santa Barbara County. I mean, with the price tags, I mean, a lot of these people, they're saving their entire life or they've been saving for generations. And finally, there is someone in their family that gets to buy their first home through that saving and long-term investing. So that's pretty incredible. Abdon, let's talk about you again for a little bit. What are you guys seeing in the lending industry with Hispanic clients or Spanish speaking clients that you get to work with? Do you have a recent example that's near and dear to your heart?
Yeah, so I'm actually currently helping an older Hispanic couple refinance their home, and helping them refinance their home actually reminds me a lot of helping my parents, just because there's like a technology barrier. So they're not really too tech savvy. So they requested everything to be done in person. So any documents that I've requested from them, we've gone into the office, all the disclosures, that's like 70 pages long. I translated each and every one of them so they knew what they were signing and they knew what each of them meant, which took a while, but we got it done.
I love that. And it's worth the investment of your time, right? There's a lot of people, they're busy. They're just trying to do loans or sales just on scale, get people in and out of the door as quickly as possible. And the fact, Abdon, that you're the type of provider that would take the time and walk them through all 70 contracts, doesn't matter what happens, whether they move forward or not. That's being an incredible fiduciary. So that's incredible. I love to hear that. So, gentlemen, why don't you tell me just a little bit about the community? Talk to me about the community. What are you passionate about with community involvement, Rafael? I know that you You love giving back. Real impact is just huge to Zia Group. We take 25% of our net profits and we write some big checks to some great causes that support vulnerable women and children. But that's not where it stops for us. We also love to get our hands, I don't want to say dirty, but we like to get involved and be actively engaged in the relationship aspect of impact. Where's your heart at these days? What are you most passionate about?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I always say that I have a really hard time saying no to anything any single opportunity that comes up. I'm always kind of raise my hand, and then later I'm thinking, like I know I have so many things to juggle, but for the most part, I think financial education, just coming from that background, has always been extremely important to me. Now, having seen like the financial crisis and to your point, how it affected generations of wealth, was just mind-boggling to me that could happen here. So financial education, just in terms of, even friends that reach out to me, even college educated friends who reach out, just asking about that kind of side, just it's something that you don't really get taught in school. It's not something that they walk you through in high school or in college, even at that level. So that's been something that I always take time to kind of clear my schedule and do. But then one thing that I, got really passionate about, and I feel like I've talked about this in previous videos, is the just mentoring youth aspect. So I became a career coach for Partners in Education, which I just got an email from them that we're getting started with fall quarter at the end of the month. So really excited to get that going. And basically what that is just working with 2-3 students where you're kind of walking them through a 6-week process of getting them prepared for an actual paid internship, which at their age is just mind-blowing to me, because I've seen college student resumes with less experience than what some of these kids might have. So that to me has been, I think, the most important aspect of what I've been doing with right now. So
I love that. I love that. That's so cool. What about you, Abdon? Is there something that's near and dear to your heart, helping clients in particular, or something that you or your team kind of have a focus on the impact side of things?
Yeah, well, for me in general, it's mostly helping families work towards their goal to, achieve homeownership. Even if it's just creating a financial plan to how to get there. I love to be part of the process. I love to be able to help families refinance their homes. By doing so, I'm creating more of a cash flow for them, and allows them more opportunity so they can invest in other ventures.
I love it. I love it. And guys, it's so unique that you guys are brothers and both in a complementary area of real estate. I know you guys get to work with clients as a tag team sometimes, as a dynamic duo. I mean, have you guys decided in your dynamic duo when you introduce yourselves, like who's Batman and who's Robin?
my brother's actually obsessed with Batman, so I think I'm gonna let him have it.
What a great brother.
I was about to say what his password to most of his stuff was, and I completely stopped myself.
Good filter.
You might have to change your passwords now.
It has nothing to do with Batman, Santa Barbara.
No.
I love it. I love it. And so, so let's just for anyone that is looking to buy or sell a home, or maybe do, get a purchase loan or do a refinance, when they choose to work with you, Rafael and the Zia Group, and you, Abdon, with Guaranteed Rate, what does that look like when they hire you as a dynamic duo? Like, what benefit is it to the client to work with you both at the same time?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of synergies, good communication, and I mean, we live together as well, so we're constantly following back and forth with like what needs to be done for the client and stuff. So that could be one of them.
I love it. So if the client calls you, Rafael, and they can't reach you, they can call Abdon, and Abdon can answer and be like, "Oh yeah, Rafael's right here watching a movie. Let me go grab him."
Yes.
Yeah, literally just
exactly
banging on his door.
Well, you gentlemen are amazing. I've just had a blast just kind of hanging out with you this afternoon and getting to hear more of your story. I love the way that each of you do business. I love your heart for everyone in town, both Spanish speakers and everyone else. And I just think that's just phenomenal. Do you guys have, just as like a parting question, is there anything that you guys see in your business as you look out, in the coming years, that you want the community to know about you or your business, or think when they think about you?
I mean, yeah, for me, it's just it's going to be a pleasure to work with the community, and I'm doing my best to get my name out there. So hopefully, you know, we get to work with the same clients in the future.
I love it. Great rates,
think,
excellent service, and
yeah.
fiduciary care. That's great. What about you, Rafael? What do you want people to know about your business?
I think one thing that's just become more important to me as I'm going through with it, like I mentioned, I obviously love working with everyone, but just being that Spanish speaking agent of choice has been extremely important to me. And to be able to do it in the city that I grew up in, like we've had open houses and stuff where like blocks away from where we used to live and where I used to have my scooter and where I fell and busted my knee. So that's been neat. But then also doing it in Santa Maria community which is where obviously I attended high school, but that's where we have, you know, I feel like there's a lot of families out there who are Spanish speaking, a lot of like field workers out in that community in particular. So to be able to help them accomplish the dream of home ownership after years of so much hard work, I mean, decades I'm talking about sometimes, I think that could be extremely fulfilling.
Absolutely. And I think it's incredible. There are so few Spanish speaking agents in town, and full-time Spanish speaking agents, even fewer still. I know, Rafael, you get a lot of referrals from local agents who come across Spanish speaking clients, and the really good ones, they recognize when there is that language barrier and they put the client's needs above their own. And I know they'll give you a call, Rafael, and they'll say, hey, Rafael, I'd love to work with this client and buy or sell their home, but I truly believe that you're going to do a better job because you can speak in their first language. So I love that integrity when an agent does that. And I know that's going to happen for years and years in the future as you're the Spanish speaking agent of choice here in Santa Barbara County. And Abdon, I know you with Guaranteed Rate, you're going to have that reputation too. And I just love the dynamic duo. So thanks again, gentlemen, for tuning in today. Santa Barbara, thanks for listening and watching. And if you have anyone that we can help, please do send them our way. Take care.
Thank you.